Why? That's hilarious.
You know what this is from?
Yes, I
Yeah,
know.
you do. He's not going to get mad at me grabbing this t-shirt, is
No.
he? Should I jacket or no jacket? Or now that we got the t-shirt out of the way.
Yeah, I think no jacket.
Okay.
Is that a fire alarm or something?
Oh, you still hear it? I'm on mute.
I did.
It's like something that people always say about black houses when you go that the smoke detector.
Do you want to mic up the fire alarm?
Yeah.
Let's start with the t-shirt.
Okay.
What happened? How did I get involved in this?
Okay. So wait, does your family know you were in the diss track?
Yes!
Okay,
So here's the problem, and that's why I have this. Because with all the typos and everything, look at this. It says, white guys named Bryce Robbins.
Yeah.
And so my kids, it is one of their biggest flexes to say my dad was in a rap diss track.
Oh, okay.
And yet, when they go to show their friends and they flip it onto the lyrics, that's how this is how the lyrics come up, and then it's just like it knocks them down a few pegs.
Really?
So yeah, I just want
but
you.
I feel like he said Bryce Roberts,
He does say it,
but the lyrics say Bryce Roberts. Yeah.
but the
I
lyrics.
was embarrassed that day. I was like, he's gonna be. I was like, I mean, could you imagine like bringing your investor in a diss track? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was so nervous that you were gonna be upset. I was like, Bryce.
Oh no! I know your text was so sweet.
Track.
I went and I pulled it up the other day just to see, and you were so sheepish about it, like, oh.
I was so nervous.
Oh, but no, I mean, it's a huge inside joke in our family now, and you know that game, like Two Truths and a Lie.
Yeah.
It's the perfect.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, because who would expect me, of all people,
to be
in somebody's diss track?
Well, yeah.
And
So
here we
how
are.
that happened was, I actually was really cool with Tory Lanez.
I remember.
Right? So we were really cool. We would go to his listening parties and things like that. And then when the Megan Thee Stallion scandal happened with him, with the shooting, we had to report on it,
Yeah.
right? And, I don't think he liked the way that we were reporting on it because, we had medical reports presenting the information.
Here's the information, right.
And there were times where he wanted us to kind of skew the narrative towards him, and we wouldn't do it. And I think he kind of felt, upset that he had invited us. He had given me gifts, and that when the news came, we weren't going to skew the narrative in his favor, right? And so after that, he was working on an album, and honestly, that's not even I think he dissed me twice
I think
on
that's
the album.
right.
It was more than once. And so we're working on it.
But this was this was an entire song dedicated to you, to the Shade Room, or most of it.
Well, it was an entire verse, I would say.
Yeah,
It was an
that's
entire
right.
verse.
Okay.
You want me to say how much you invested?
Yeah, I mean, he says it in the song. It's measly $100,000.
Yeah, he said you invested measly $100,000 into the Shade Room, and basically just kind of said do better with the platform and what you're doing in the culture. And that's always been. I love the culture and the community, right? And
More
so
than
that's
anything.
always been a concern for me. And it hit me at a time where I was feeling very insecure about what we were doing in the culture, But at the same time, I just knew that it was a narrative that he basically was like, I'm going to try to bring this platform down.
Because the way he tried to frame it was that I had some kind of control over here's another white guy coming in, taking over a black culture.
Exactly. He framed it like it was an agenda.
Yes.
Like you were coming in and you were hiring me basically to kind of come at the community, which honestly to me was laughable. And I confronted him on Clubhouse.
Oh, you did? I didn't see that.
I did. Oh yeah, we went back and forth on Clubhouse.
Okay.
Because the reality is that when I met you, right, it was in 2015.
That's right.
I believe it was April 2015.
Yeah, that's right.
It was in April 2015. Yep. And what a lot of people don't know is that black female founders don't get a lot of investment.
Yeah.
Especially from Silicon Valley, right? So you specifically having an interest in investing in black women, right? Because I remember the round that I had, it was a couple of black women in that round, was something that you were doing before it was even really talked about. It was before people started to address the issue. It was back in 2015. You already had that intention to invest in people that don't typically get investment, right? And And you know, I always tell you, like, if I didn't get, the shade room wouldn't be where it is if I didn't get your investment. Why? It wasn't the money.
I was gonna say it wasn't the money because you never spent the money.
I never spent the money. I literally, I didn't. For me, it wasn't the money that I was looking for when I was getting investment from you. It was the knowledge.
Yeah.
That was what was more meaningful to me, right? And the money did make me lose a little bit of fear because I was very nervous. I mean, I had been deleted once before, so I'm like, I don't know if this is even a real business. I don't know how long this is gonna go.
Because let's go back to 2015. What did the Shade Room look like in 2015? How many followers? How big of a business was it?
Do you remember how many followers I had?
It was like 50,000.
I think it was 500,000.
Okay.
Because at that time, when I met you, it was after New York Times.
That was right. New York Times is just that's what put you on my radar.
Instagram's new TMZ.
Yeah.
No, Instagram's TMZ.
That's
That's what they call it. Instagram's TMZ. And so at that time, we were at 500,000 followers. I believe we were deleted before that or shortly after.
I think that's right. It might have been right after.
I think it was right after.
Yeah.
You saw my name in the article, and
right.
then you reached out, and it was a short turnaround for when the program would start.
That's right. Yeah, because I remember we had closed applications for it.
Yes.
And then I saw Jenna's article.
I
need to work with her.
No, yeah.
I do that very infrequently, but I sent Jenna a message asking if she could pass along your contact info because the article was. I don't think you were name by name. I think you were like Lady Shade or something.
Oh yeah, because I was still behind the scenes.
That's right. You were like a pseudonymous person, and so I thought, there's so much interesting about how she framed your story, and so I reached out to her, passed along your info. We had one call, and I think the program started like the next week or two. Like it was a very quick turnaround time. And I remember because I was sitting in the Costco parking lot having this call with you. And it just was one of those moments in life. When we talked, it was kind of like an immediate, I thought I understood where you were coming from. I think you were probably a little hesitant just because I think you'd probably been approached by investors in the past or you had
I wasn't though, Bryce, honestly, because I had been approached by investors in the past. Like there were more people reaching out.
Yeah.
But we're spiritual. It was just a spiritual thing. I can read people. When I meet a good person, I know I've met a good person. And just having that call with you, I was like, okay, maybe I was nervous about the fact that it was a quick turnaround time, but for me, I just knew I didn't even read the contract. Yeah. I knew that I was making a good decision. I knew that you were trustworthy. It was a good decision.
You tell me how many years into it are we now?
It was such a good decision that I don't think I know I wouldn't be here. You know why? Because one, the 100,000 gave me the confidence. Because I was like, well, if this all falls down, at least I have a cushion to, I guess, right? And then it was mainly what I learned in the program. Mm-hmm. It was what I learned from you about business and investment. I never took another investor after.
Ever, I know.
Just by 10 years.
Lots of people trying.
I've had offers from everywhere, right? Yeah. And big numbers. But I never took another investment, mainly because I haven't met a person that I trusted like I've trusted you. But also it was your viewpoint on investment. I don't know if you remember when I came into the program, you were like, you were kind of like against taking a lot of investment. Yeah. You were like, don't balloon the company. You know what I mean?
Well, look, think about when we started working together, the kind of 800-pound gorilla media giants of that time were like BuzzFeed and Vice and all these that had run that exact same playbook. They'd all raised gobs of money. They'd all gotten as big as they could, as fast as they could. They all had BuzzFeed News and BuzzFeed Sports and BuzzFeed blah, 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 blah. You look at those companies today. Like, how relevant are they today? Vice is gone. BuzzFeed's hanging on by a thread. And it feels like Shade Room's as big or bigger than it's ever been.
Yeah, but what do you think about the fact that we've never gotten to the heights of BuzzFeed or Vice at their highest heights? They were unicorn companies, right? That's what everybody was calling them.
Yeah, but what are they now? You know what I mean? Yes, I think there's something to that. I think that is, frankly, I think that's a you thing. I think there are moves you might be hesitant to make to really get to that level, or you might not want to be at that level. there's a lot that comes with that. There's a lot of people that come with that. There's a lot of overhead and responsibility, risk comes with shooting for that, and frankly, with a relatively low probability that you get there. I think, when I say that, that isn't to marginalize at all who you are, what you do. I think you're built different than they are, and I think if you tried to play that same game, which is why I so wanted to work with you, if you would have tried to run the same thing that you were doing, you would have gotten a totally different, you might have ended up with the exact same result of not being in business. Versus, I think your approach is uniquely you in how you've approached building the Shade Room. And I think you would say it's not where you want it to be still.
I'm not done yet.
But you're not done, and that's what I think people miss about what it is you're building is you've had so many opportunities around over the years to sell the business, to cash out, to move on to whatever's next. Yeah. But there's this real conviction around what it is you've been building over all this time. So again, that isn't at all to say you couldn't have been BuzzFeed, or frankly, that you won't be that big, but you're gonna do it your way. And I think everybody else was trying to do it the way that they were being told to do it. And so I have so much respect for you in doing it, on your timeline and the way you want to build it. And I think that's why I wanted to work with you, is because I felt like if there was another investor, they would have put, there's a lot of pressure to do exactly what those companies did. Yeah. And I think, the way you fit into culture and your view of what it is you're trying to build and what you're trying to accomplish is often misunderstood, but never in question in my mind.
Yeah, and I think that it's so funny because after I came out of your program, the first one, I was so militant, no investment money, and I
remember that.
I was doing interviews, and I was like, I'm not taking any investment money. We're gonna bootstrap the rest of the way.
Right.
And I remember sitting down with Summer from Buzzfeed.
Yeah.
And she told me, she said, if we could do it again, we probably would have did it that way.
Yeah.
And so. It was interesting, and I've been told 1,000 times, literally, I'm probably not exaggerating. I always say this is the dumbest thing you could ever do, not taking investment money, media companies burn out, you're playing with time, you're playing with Instagram because that's our biggest platform. Even though we've cross-platformed out, but Instagram is the biggest platform still. And so they're you're playing with Instagram, you're playing with Elon Musk, what's going on? You know what I mean? And so I've been told over and over again how foolish that decision is. But I think for me, what matters is the impact, right? And I think that even though we are polarizing,
I had no idea how polarizing.
Yeah, we're very polarizing.
But why is that? Why do you think that is? Because truly, it's almost, there is no middle ground. When I tell people that you and I are friends,
they either hate it or love it.
It's not like they're in between at all. It's it's the best thing ever, or
it's the worst thing.
The worst thing ever.
Exactly. And I think the reason why is because of the community that we serve, right? So the news is black media, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there are companies like TMZ and Page Six, they can operate without having the responsibility of the entire community and culture, right? So TMZ can report on celebrities, and they're not tasked with, being a representation of white culture.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Do you think that's fair for you?
Oh, it's completely unfair. Yeah, it's completely unfair, but it's a responsibility that I've always understood. Because we're tasked with that, any representation that's not positive, right? If we report on someone who went to jail, or if we report on a crime, or if we report on something that's happening as drama or whatever in the culture, then it's oh wait, because they didn't expect us to get so big. When we were smaller, it was we love Shade. It was everybody loved the Shade Room. And then once we got so big that they knew it was multicultural in audience, and it was on a bigger stage, it was mainstream, then they said, okay, now we have a problem, because when you post something, it's so loud that it reverberates outside of our community.
Whereas before, everyone thought you had a lane, you were going to stay in that lane.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there a particular story, post, you felt where that became more clear to you, that you'd kind of hit an inflection point in culture that was outside of your core community?
I wouldn't say it was in particular, because a lot of people say, what's the story?
Yeah.
That wasn't the way
Wasn't
it was
the one,
for us.
okay.
It was when the community got loud. It still happens to this day. We were on every hot show that had a Black audience.
I was going to ask, because I mean, obviously I was thinking about it in relation to the song, like, you've been a part of pop culture, and like, I used to genuinely, you remember this, I used to screenshot or send you videos anytime, and then it was just like every day you were getting mentioned on a TV show, in a song, whatever it was.
I mean, we were on Insecure Atlanta.
Oh,
I mean,
all of it.
in movies. We were in movies. Drake mentioned us, Nicki Minaj, J. Cole. I mean, like, it was everybody, right? And so I think that's when people said, okay, well, this platform kind of got bigger than what we thought it would.
Right.
And it's so ingrained in the culture. It's on SNL. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and
oh, geez, that's right. I forgot about
yeah, it
SNL.
was on SNL. I can't even. The Kardashians mentioned it on their reality show.
Yeah.
People then began to say, okay, well, because they're so loud, we have to hold them accountable for the representation. And I've always been from the mindset of like, hey, we're just a reflection. For us to make everything positive, would that be an accurate reflection, right? We have diversified, like we report on the positive and the negative and the in between, everything, right? And the thing is that I'm such a quiet person about philanthropy, because philanthropy should be, on a megaphone. I just don't think that. And so they don't know a lot of what we do behind the scenes. So they don't actually. So that's why Tory Lanez is like, "What did you do for the community?" And I'm like, 100,000. You know how much we've given to the community? Like, come on, like you have no idea.
Right.
But I think that we don't put that out there, so people don't even know what we do on the back end for the community, or how much love I have for the community, because I'm not doing interviews every day, or like I'm not putting myself out there really. I might do an interview here and there if I'm asked, but I'm not like pushing myself.
And is that a personality thing, or is that intentional on your part?
I think the philanthropy thing is a belief of mine. I just don't believe in giving and then making it a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
So my team is very frustrated with me about that, because they're like, well, if nobody knows what we do, then of course the narrative is going to be this way. But I just don't. I think if you're going to give, you just got to give. The stand behind the scenes is a personality thing. I don't care to be in the forefront for anything. So I feel comfortable behind the scenes.
Which is interesting, because if you look at Vice, or you look at Buzzfeed, or you look at some of these other media companies, they all have a very public facing person that people associate with the brand, and you've chosen not to do that.
Right, and I commend them for what they do.
But I also think, I think people probably don't. I think it's partly your personality, but it came up very early in talking to you too, is like, I think you don't necessarily see yourself as the face of, even the owner of the Shade Room in a lot of ways. You see it as like the community is really the face of it, the roommates.
Yeah, exactly. And, I kind of see myself as just running this platform for them. You know what I mean? I have thought sometimes where I'm like, well, why didn't she take investment money? Why are you like this? And I just believe that we're going to get there another way. And it may be a slower path, but like you said, we're still here. And I still never have had a red quarter. You know what I mean?
I know.
I still haven't had to do layoffs. You know what I mean? We've still been growing in revenue. So it's slow, but we've been kind of shielded from a lot of what's happened in the economy and, over time. So,
So where is there for you now versus when you started? Meaning, like you said, we're not there yet. Is there a destination? Is there an end game with Shade Room, and has that changed from when we first started working together?
No, I think it's still the same dreams. You know what I mean? It's still the same dreams. I definitely want access. I want us to be able to begin to break barriers and access for Black media that it's never seen, and then with ownership. I think that, when I look at Black media, it never gets past a certain point without ownership. Call me Machiavelli or whatever, I don't know, but I'm willing to try.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm willing to go down that, because I feel like, why not? If I have this opportunity, why not try?
Right.
Why not try to build it and still represent that ownership and showcase that to the community, so that people coming up can say, I can do that.
Yes.
I don't have to sell my business. I don't have to you know, I know so many founders that are like 3% owner, you know what I mean? And,
Absolutely.
you know, or, you know, give up the business and, you know, and that's the only route. I don't believe so, you know, and I might be crazy for it, but okay, you know, if I, you know, what's the harm? If I am crazy, then I'm crazy. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how I feel about
Should we talk about some of your crazier moments we've had together?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
You know, all of those businesses are in deep, deep trouble. Some of them are flat out gone that you were worried about back then. You know, we talked a lot about that because, you know, I think there were a lot of existential risks to the Shade Room in general. But you're just Noah's Ark in it over there, and I'm just happy to be one of the animals on the ship.
No, yeah, but
I think from your standpoint, you saw those as kind of untouchable.
I thought they were untouchable. Everybody was like, what's the next media company we could invest in? It was like the big deal. Everybody wanted to invest in and that's when we got a lot of the investment calls.
That's right.
From a lot of people who were saying, yeah, and they were throwing money because they were like, we want to get the next big media company unicorn. The way media has been hit so hard, and especially journalism and news, it does kind of feel like a mass exodus in that sense.
One thing that I remember specifically about then that you and I used to always go back and forth on was, I thought you could not only be as big or bigger than them, but I remember you thinking I always would point you and say, look, that's who you're going after. You're going after BuzzFeed and Vice. You were thinking of yourself as like a meme page. Do you remember this?
Yeah. I didn't
like Daquan, and there was there were a few others that were around back then, and I remember I knew you knew that Shade Room could be what it's becoming now.
Yeah.
But I think your comp, like who you compared yourself to, was very different. I'm wondering how that evolved.
I don't compare myself to any of them now.
No, you don't.
I don't think we're BuzzFeed. I don't think we're any of those. I don't think we're a meme page. I think what we're gonna have to do, I think we're gonna have to pivot and do another disruption. I think when the Shade Room came in, it was a disruptor because of the format. You know, we were on Instagram, we were doing short little bite size.
And you were doing 50, 100 posts
a day. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Always in everybody's feed.
Yeah.
And I think right now there needs to be another disruption. And I think that the next iteration of the Shade Room is going to be disruptive, but in a different way. If you ask me what that is, again, because I'm going off of vision, right?
Sure.
When you see a picture of something, but I don't really have the exact details of how we're going to get there. But I'm trying things. I'm working it out.
I know throughout the years you've always felt a little at the mercy of Instagram, and maybe that was because of them deleting the account at one point.
Yes.
How have you managed that platform risk? And as you think about disruption, the landscape's changed so much since when you started, right?
Yeah.
Like TikTok wasn't around, Snapchat, like these were all very small platforms, and you were nearly 100% on Instagram.
I feel like we've diversified that risk more, but at the same time, the investment in social media platforming, you know, is not really where I want to go.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I think, you know, there is something to getting off of digital. You know what I mean? Having some digital properties and then live properties, you know what I mean, that are off of digital and, you know, different platforms, owning your own platform. Owned and operated platforms. I definitely feel like that is the goal still. You know, we have our own and operated platform, but we haven't done what I think needs to be done yet. One thing that they did say back then were like, you're investing in the social media platforms. It was good for us for 10 years.
Oh,
you know?
for sure. And you tried a lot of them, right? Like you diversified your risk from just Instagram. I mean, I remember there was a time you went pretty deep with Snapchat.
Yeah, we're still on Snapchat. We still have Snapchat shows.
Okay.
We went pretty deep with Snapchat. We built an audience there. We built an audience on Threads, which is still Instagram basically, but we built an audience on TikTok and Twitter and YouTube. Yeah. So we've diversified it, and then our owned and operated is doing way better than what it ever was. But I think that there still needs to be more done for us to really establish our own platform, right? And so that is still something that I want to do, and I feel like was good advice. But for us, it was good for us to float because we were able to take advantage of the low overhead, right? Because you have to think about what my goal was. It was to build consistently, rather, even though it's slow, it was to build consistently, but bootstrap. Because, you know, Like you said, every founder has a different goal, right? And if I want, you know how many times people told me build the company up to exit, take these investors' money. Who cares if the
Do you know how many people's jaws hit the floor when I tell them you've turned down multiple 9-figure offers for your business?
Yeah.
I just can't even fathom that that's the case.
Everybody, that's what I'm saying. Everybody thinks I'm a lunatic. That's why I say I might be.
You might be.
but I never did this for money. That's the thing. You get what I'm saying? If I was motivated by money, I would have taken that, and I wouldn't care where the shade room went after that.
That's right.
Because a lot of founders build to exit because they just want, when you get an idea and you strike the iron hot, when I talk to a lot of these founders, it's like, just get your money, use their money, and if it fails, oh well, you're safe, you have a cushion. I'm not built like that. You know what I mean? If I take your money, I want to pay you back. Like, you know what I mean? So
I think I know at least one of those founders you're talking about, and I know that didn't work out quite so well.
Oh yeah, exactly. I want to pay you back. Like, I have integrity, right? And so if I take 9 figures from you, I'm not gonna take 9 figures from you unless I know how to give you a multiple on your money. If I don't know how to do that, or if I don't have a plan that I feel is a good plan for that, I'm not going to do that. I just can't live like that, right? And also, I'm not motivated by money. I'm motivated by purpose. And so this more so is a purpose for me. That's why I'm okay with being crazy if that's what I am, you know? Because I'm like, well, at least I tried everything to do something that I felt was rarely ever seen in Black media. While I have it, let me try to push this purpose all the way to the end, you know what I mean, and see, right?
You've tried a lot of things. I was thinking about that on the drive over.
Yes.
Because if I remember back in the day, we had a lot of calls where you wanted to go in a million different directions.
I don't think that's an accurate assessment. I think that I've talked about a lot of things. I don't know if
that's
fair. You know, I'm really not. I'm not a.
That's fair. Actually, to your credit, 99% of the time, we talk about it and you'd be like, all right.
Because I've been living. I've been living such a risky. This has been a risky.
Do you feel like it's been a risky?
What do you mean? Of course.
Okay.
It was risky to turn down 9 figures.
I know.
Especially when you're on social media. It was risky to build a company on social media. It was risky to do a lot of things. For years, I would say half of this journey has been stressful nights of sleep, thinking, waking up in the middle of my sleep with cold sweats, thinking, what if this all is just over tomorrow? You know what I mean? I had people on staff. I had people, depending on the shade room for a livelihood.
Right.
And I was, doing risky things. It was risky to pivot to politics when politics doesn't make money, and everybody was like, why are you going to politics? You can't, the advertisers hate it, and I'm like, well, because I want to bust open the door for media companies like mine to get into the White House. You know what I mean? And us being on Air Force 2 and being in the White House and getting invited to the DNC and all that, to me was not something that had ever happened for a Black media company that was in our untraditional lane, right? And then we bust open the door, and now all the other iterations of the shade room were able to go as well. And so I feel like, again, I'm just motivated by purpose. And ironically, as we've been building, the money has come. You know what I mean? Not on, we're not 100 million a year, 200 million a year business. I believe we will be one day, but it's just, we're taking our time.
You were talking about getting money there and not being a primary motivator, but it's hard to ignore. I remember us having conversations about the disparity between ad rates and ad takes at a Buzzfeed and a Vice. Sponsors and advertisers working with those outlets versus a Black media outlet.
That's so big because you look at Vice, right? Brands will say Shade Room's not brand safe, but Vice was. Are we kidding me? Are you kidding me? Vice was talking about drugs and having actual drug dealers cooking crack on you know what I mean? Like, but they were getting the advertisers and the sponsors and
next to a Campbell's soup ad or a Pyrex ad or something like that.
And then the brands will go and say, well, you put a Z on the end of that word, and you know what I mean? Like, so they would say Shade Room's not brand safe, code for just basically not feeling like our platform and our audience was something they wanted to align their brand with. Or no, it's not that they didn't want to align their brand with it, because they would want to work with us. They just devalued us in the process.
Yes.
I remember Complex, we were doing a deal. This company was paying Complex and the Shade Room. It was a social media post.
Yep.
And they paid Complex 10 times well, they paid us, but we did over 100 times in impressions, engagements, and reach than they did on that post. That's the disparity. I found that we would have to work a million times over to get just a small sense of what other companies were getting. There was a time when we had to rely on small businesses to fund our entire operation. And then we slowly moved. Now we're like 90% agency, right? We barely, small business is such a small portion of our revenue, but we had to fight for that. We had to fight to get Minute Maid. We had to fight to get all of the streaming platforms like HBO and, you know, all of the, and Netflix. You know, now they come to us all the time, but we had to fight to do that. We had to fight to get GMC and, like, you know, all of these. So oftentimes we would have to give them something for free first and then let them see how crazy it went. And then they would say, oh yeah, definitely we're coming to you, you know, for round 2, 3, 4. But I think that it's been very hard in that way. Yeah.
Has it changed at all?
No, I mean, we're still fighting.
Okay.
And that's why I'm so passionate about pivoting and finding a disruption that we don't have to even deal with them anymore. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, this is a ceiling that only gets an inch higher each time. You know what I mean? And I'm tired of that fight. Like, you know what the shade room is at this point. You know what I mean? And you know how our audience is, right? And how much engagement, impressions, and, you know, I don't know. We shouldn't have to fight and sell ourselves short or get devalued at this point, you know? So.
Devalued is such a strong word. And it's such a strong idea to think that your audience would be considered less than something like Buzzfeed or, you know, one of these other media properties.
And the crazy part is we know who our audience is.
Right.
We know what the demographic is. So we can specifically pinpoint that for advertisers and all of that. You know, it's the name of the game. But I have a question for you, though.
Hit me with it.
I would say that I haven't really handled our relationship in a way that was typical, right?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm supposed to pay you a certain amount. I never did. You know what I mean? Like, I literally just went ghost and then came back with a check.
To me, it was a non-issue.
Really?
Yeah. To me, it was, like, I know who you are. I know what your values are, and I know the relationship we had. And if it meant you needed to go away for a little bit to sort things out, you know, I never stressed about it. And hopefully you never felt that on my side.
No, that's why I was saying, you just seem so cool. And I said, okay, Bryce, look, I'm going to pay you back all the money, like in one check. And then I wanted to negotiate some equity back.
Yeah.
And I remember you asked me, you said, are you going to sell?
Yeah.
And I said, no. Did you trust me at that point?
100%.
Really?
Yeah. In startups, there's always a dimension of, like, who am I talking to? Am I talking to the founder or am I talking to the lawyer? So there was some of that of okay, you know, I don't think you'd had any big offers at that point.
Yeah.
But I also knew where your heart and values were around what you were trying to build. I mean, we'd at that point worked together, 3 years or 4 years in, something like that. We'd worked together enough that I knew if you said that, you were serious about it. And I also knew, because I'd seen over those 3 years the trade-offs you'd made personally, professionally, financially, to be true to what you saw in that vision and what you were trying to build. I think I remember a conversation we had where you were basically like, everyone else is going to sell out this community. I don't know, there was something in that conversation. I remember exactly where I was when we had it, and I remember how I felt. I don't know the exact words, but it was something like that sense of stewardship, that it was bigger than you, you know, and so just to flip it and get meaningfully life-changing money. But that's the interesting thing to me is, I mean, look at where we are right now. I mean, talk about life-changing money.
Right.
You know, I mean, you don't flaunt it and you don't show it in ways that others do, but, like, you know, this has been a life-changing experience for you building this business. When we first talked about, you know, the shade room for Indy.
First of all, I lied to you, you know, but there's some good lies and some bad lies. I might have puffed up how much money we were making at the time. Yes. I think I told you either $10,000 a month or something like that. It was more like $5,000 maybe at that time. I think I told you I was a business and I wasn't. We didn't do the LLC. I did that after.
That's right.
I mean, do you regret it? But I think that I was in Hawthorne. I was in the hood. Yeah. And I don't know. I just, like, even when I think about that, I'm like, this has been a journey. Just a few months before that, I was thinking I was going to get evicted because I couldn't pay my rent. I had quit my job because my boss gave me an ultimatum, and I didn't have any revenue coming in. I was in the red, and I would be borrowing $10 from my friend. My friend mentions it now to this day. She's like, remember when you borrowed $10 for the week for food? Like, I was eating like ramen and all of that. Like, it was a bad time.
I think, honestly, when I think back now, I think that's, when I reached out through Jenna, I think that was part of it, was like, this girl really has something uniquely her to do. And I don't know that the money made that much of a difference, but I do know, I just remember you in that first meeting we had just being such a sponge. Like, you were taking notes, it was just like, there was a door that had opened or some information that you'd been hungry for.
You gave me access, that's what you gave me, right? Because I had access to these huge CEOs. I'm trying to remember, I know it was like the Indeed
That's right.
CEO. Who else? Squarespace? Mm-hmm. It was like you have to understand, like, I was being in front of people who you could only dream to have a meeting with, right? And I was hearing from them and I was learning from them, and they were teaching me things. I mean, I saw the vision of that it would be impactful, but I didn't see the business side
That's
of it.
right.
I remember you telling me, hey, you need to focus on profitability. Like, that was one thing that you were saying. You're like, if you're going to be a business, you have to be profitable. Focus on whatever it is that you're selling, basically, theoretically, right? And I think that that got me to start focusing on the numbers and the profitability of it so that we can sustain ourselves, right? And bootstrap. Because you're like, listen, I remember you telling me, you were like, if you don't know how to make money yet, why are you going to take more money from people? You know what I mean? Like, that was what people were doing. They didn't know how to make money yet, and they would take all of these millions of dollars.
One thing I remember in that first meeting was you saying how much you were charging advertisers on your, was it Big Cartel page or something like that?
Oh, yeah, it was Shopify.
It was like a Shopify page that people could go in and buy advertisements like they were buying a T-shirt.
I think I was charging like $75.
And you were charging like, it was like, I remember it being like $35 or $50 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in that room was like, triple it.
Exactly. And I did.
10x it.
I literally left and tripled it.
I remember
I did more than triple it. I think I went from 75 to 1,000 that day.
Yes, it was a big jump.
And it was just like to change the business, and then we get, you know what I mean? So it's like it's things like that.
And I swear you went home that night, did it, and the next day you came in having sold something.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was insane.
That's what I'm saying, right? So, and then it was hearing from other founders. So that to me was the most valuable part of meeting you, was the knowledge that was imparted to me through the program, and also just the support of you. Because I know that when I would have like, I know I came to you and said I was wanting to quit and shut things down. I know I said that a few times. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you would always talk to me and be like, no, and you believed in me even when people in the community did not, right? Or and it's like, I'm not mad about it, because I see why people have polarizing viewpoints on who I am and what this business is. They don't know me. They don't know like my heart. And you would always speak to that part, and so having you there, having the knowledge was a game changer. And that's why I feel like, okay, so what, Tory Lanez put you in a diss track and created this whole idea that there's this agenda. The only agenda here was you investing in companies and people that don't typically get investment, and giving them and helping them to get access to places that rooms that they don't typically get to be in, and being able to see themselves in a way that oftentimes we don't get the opportunity to see ourselves in. And that's why I'm here. That was a crucial
What do you mean,
part.
seeing yourself in ways you don't usually see yourself?
I was just, talking to this guy, and he said something interesting to me. He said, a lot of Black businesses, they get to a certain place and then they stay the same and never elevate until it's done. You get what I'm saying? I'll just use a podcast because it's an easier way to visualize it, right? They'll get a podcast, it'll hit in the culture, and then you'll see that they never elevate the podcast. Never. It just keeps going until it's no longer relevant, and then it's goodbye. You like when you look at like a Google and you see their first logo, and then you see what they've become, or when you look at like a Instagram and you see what they were at first, and then you see what they become. How often do you see that with Black businesses? That's not something that you see a lot. Where I was when I met you, I could have stayed there. You know what I mean? Even and trust me, I want to be way bigger, right? But I could have stayed there, and it would have just died out there. But because the doors were open to hear from other business people, I'm like, oh no, we can actually get bigger. We could do better. We could do more things. So I was able to see myself in a different light. And so I'm not ashamed that a white guy named Bryce Robbins, invested in the shade room. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not ashamed of that. I feel like there needs to be more Bryce Robbins investing in more businesses.
I would imagine you talk to a lot of Black entrepreneurs. You advise and mentor people without making a big deal about it. But the numbers that were being invested in when you and I started working together back in 2015, 2016, they haven't changed.
What is it like?
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1% of all venture capital goes to Black founders. How do you see that affecting the founders you talk to, advise, mentor? How does your experience building the Shade Room influence how maybe you advise them too? Because I would imagine a lot of them default to that idea that they have to raise a lot of money.
Yeah, I think, and I'm not against it.
Yeah,
I'm being honest. I'm not against raising a lot of money. I think that some people have to. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
And I've talked to a lot of people, and when I try to talk that bootstrap talk, they're like, "Oh, get out of here." We actually have a tech, real tech business. You know what I mean? So, or like they have a product that they need to get. You know what I mean? And so I feel like raise money if you have to. If I had to, I would have raised money. You know what I mean? But if there's a way. But you don't have that. We don't necessarily have that option.
But see, that's the beauty of your business and the way you built it. It's something we think a lot about, which is like time to revenue. Like you didn't have to build a lot of tech. You could sell day one advertising once you'd built that audience. And I think a lot of people convince themselves that their problem is a really big problem. You could have. There's another version of Shade Room where you raise $5 million up front. You build your own platform, your own apps, your own everything.
I don't know. If I could live in the Matrix and live
I want to go there with you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wish I could live in like the, what's it called, multiverse?
Yes.
You know what I mean? To see. But there's a version of the Shade Room where I could have hired 3,000 employees and had a bunch of offices all over the country. And spit out a lot of money on, you know what taught me the value of an audience and why that was a great focus? Two things. I remember it was the indie guy, right? Because we had a conversation about Craigslist.
Yes, that's right.
And we were like, and I was like, why is Craigslist the same? And I remember he said, focus. What do people come to you for? If you can keep people. If you can get people so trained to come to you for a certain thing, then they'll always come to you. Like, it's like Google. Before Google started having all these other properties, we knew Google to be the search engine, and they ran that game so well. We don't even think of the internet outside of Google. Google is the internet. You know what I mean? To us, right? You're serving your audience in such a way that you have been an expert in that field that you almost become synonymous with it, whatever you're doing. And then he said, okay, you can build outside of that, but focus, is really important to me. But I feel like when you have all of these resources, I don't know if you remember when Quibi was like the hottest thing.
Of course, yeah.
Quibi was I would go to every studio and they would say Quibi is going to be this and this and this. They had the talent, they had the money, they had the hype in the industry. They didn't have the audience. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? So I feel like a lot of money and a lot of resources can be a hindrance sometimes because you don't have to be as thoughtful about what lane you're going in because you have the resources to try a lot of things. And that doesn't always work.
Did you have any things you tried that you were surprised didn't work? Things you thought would really kill it and they just didn't?
I would say...
You've tried a lot. You've done like long form video, you've done series, you've done...
We did do long form video. I was surprised that... we've had some, like, our TSR Investigates is like a beloved show. You know what I mean?
No, I know.
But I think that... Oh, you know what I was surprised didn't work? We wanted to go to the studios. We had a lot of deals with studios.
I remember this,
we had a deal with WeTV. We had a deal with... I had a deal with Universal Pictures that was kind of outside of the scope, but then I wanted to bring it into the scope. We
Yep.
had the studio deals didn't work like I thought they would. And
Why
that
was that?
surprised
Was
me.
that a studio thing or was that a shade room thing? Why it didn't work?
I think it was just a studio thing. I think that was the wrong strategy. My goal was like, let's just get on TV somehow.
This is so interesting.
Yeah, and I felt like it was just the wrong strategy. Studios take too long. By the time the product is done, it's nothing like what you envision. You know, every time I
do.
call you, I'm like, we have a new deal with.
Oh, I know.
And see, the thing about Bryce is he'll always be like, that's what he'll do. He'll be like, and you know that it's like you know what he's thinking. You already know. And you told me, I think you told me like, so why? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I was
My thing was like, you are the new platform. Why do you keep going back to these dinosaurs? You're
to
gonna
these dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that's the finger right there. That's what he does. And then I would say programming in general has been kind of like hard for us.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like it would be, honestly. What we have started that I didn't think would do well is events. Yeah. So we started doing like events in like South by Southwest and things like that, and we've been showing up at ad week, you know what I mean, doing our stuff, and like that has worked really well.
What kind of events are they?
So sponsored, even, and now we're talking to a huge company where we're signing a deal for like a festival, right? Now that's going to be interesting.
TSR Fest, or what are we calling it?
TSR, we could say TSR Fest for now.
Placeholder.
But yeah. So that's an exciting venture that I'm not even nervous about.
Do you know where it's going to be?
Philly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're going to start in Philly. We're trying to start in Philly where Made in America was.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Now.
What's your vision for the event?
Well, we'll talk about that later.
We can edit it out.
We've tried a lot of things.
Yeah.
And there were things that didn't stick, and then there were things that went really well. So.
Has there anybody who's come along since you started that you felt like was going to be a real competitor, a real threat? You've outlasted a lot of things that have come and gone.
Really? Like what?
I don't know. You've introduced me to a few people over the years that are doing podcast networks or doing media companies.
Yeah, but I feel like my biggest competitors that I saw as competitors were the people that were already doing it and doing it on a big level.
Yeah,
those were the main people.
Right.
And yeah, one of our big competitors, we went to a studio and they said we were trying to do like content with them, like a documentary, and they were like, we can't work with you. We were like, why? They were like, you're written in the contract. We have a contract with another company that wrote you in the contract and said we cannot do.
Stop it.
Yes. And
fully
I was
blocked you.
Huh?
I said they just fully blocked you.
They fully blocked me. And it was a company that I had no idea saw us as a competitor because they have been around so long, and it was something I will put as an accolade because I was so happy that.
I bet.
Yeah, I was like, oh wow, they blocked us. That means
right.
that they
think we're a threat.
They think we're a threat. They think if we get our own little live show that maybe it'll be, you know what I mean. So I think I may be naive in this way. I'm not too worried about competitors as much as I'm worried about. I think my biggest threat is me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I
do.
Like that's what I'm worried about.
How do you manage that?
I manage it by calling my assistant and telling her to book a vacation in the south of France so I can forget a double shot of rum and coke and just, like, I'm so, like, you know what I mean? I'm being honest with you. Like, it's hard to manage. I think you have to look at, as a founder, you have to look in the mirror and make sure you are your biggest threat.
Yeah.
If you don't deal with whatever could be hindering you. That's
what I tell people all the time. It's like your biggest threat is between your two ears.
Yeah.
You are willing to put it. So many people just, especially when they have unlimited resources, they chase everything. And so for you.
But has that been bad?
No, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that's a good thing that you were able to focus on the things you felt like could be the highest impact rather than just chasing every idea.
No, I'm saying, has it been bad for the people that chase every idea?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just a constant set of distractions. And then, and it's partly what happens with that is when you are trying so many different things all the time, you have zero patience for anything to actually work and compound.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you don't get an immediate hit, then you move on to the next thing. Do you know what I mean? And
see, I used to be like envious of those people.
I know.
Because they had something I didn't.
What was that?
No fear.
Oh.
No fear.
No sense.
Oh, okay.
And now no business.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's true, yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, what I think you did have though was that, you're really good at leaning on people around you to help you filter and focus in a way that maybe left to your own devices, like maybe some of those other people are, where they don't have people around the table that can just be real with them about where to focus their energy. I mean, you and I both know there were times when you were ready to just try a whole new business.
Oh yeah, that thought comes around every 6 months.
Still,
Absolutely.
you stopped calling me about it.
I just thought of it like 3 months ago. Yeah.
So how do you talk yourself out of it?
I'm not done. That's the thing. I'm like, all right, have you finished yet?
Yeah.
What? The only way I'm gonna lay down is if.
Is that like Kobe Bryant voice? The job's not done?
Yeah, it's not done. I just don't feel like it's done, so I can't stop.
Yeah.
I'm like a person that is vision based, and like purpose based. So wow, I can't stop. And it's so crazy because I think everybody's different. Like I see serial entrepreneurs, and I'm like, wow, the freedom. You know what I mean?
Because to have a tequila company and to have a media company
and they don't care. They're like, oh, I did. They do a little bit of it, and they're like, throw the business. They just can let go. I'm not like that. I'm like, because I guess I see the business so much more than just a business. You know what I mean? So I can't just let go. I'm like, no, let's finish the race. You know what I mean? And so that's where I am. But it's so easy to be envious. I don't even know if envy is the word or admiration. To look at other founders who are so different than you, you have an admiration for the qualities that you don't have. I admire their ability to build and let go. And then I can look at somebody who has tried 100 things and maybe they have no focus and maybe that leads them to hit a brick wall, but I admire their ability to have no fear. With me, I think fear is a motivator, but it's also like a hindrance because I want whatever I'm doing to work, so it takes me a long time to make that move. And then when I make that move, it's so important to me. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like people who have no fear, like, it didn't work out, whatever, they move on to the next thing, right? And so you always wonder what it would be like if you were on the other side. But there's a part of me that's like, I wonder what it would have been like in the multiverse.
Right.
If I took the $50 million deal or whatever, you get what I'm saying, and what that would have looked like. You just never know. You make a choice and you don't know what it could have been, right?
Yep.
So do you ever think of that? Like,
all the time.
Really?
Yeah, not out of regret, but kind of like there's certainly different, like very concrete, I think Jeff Bezos calls them like one-way and two-way doors. Like there are some one-way doors that you can only go through, you can't come back. For me, I'm not wired to sit there and question what if. But I think the goal then is just to limit the number of one-way doors that you have to go through. Because two-way doors in business, you can go through it, see that it didn't work, pop back out, right? You can make that hire that you needed to make, and if they don't work out, you can let them go. So I think there's certainly a bunch of decisions I've made and moves that I've made that I could look back and say, oh man, if I were in the multiverse, life would have worked out very differently. But then I look at my life. Young Bryce would be over the moon about how 50-year-old Bryce's life turned out.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
I don't think, that's true. I don't think I have any regrets.
No, I don't see any regret.
Yeah,
I really don't. I mean, even as you're reflecting on it, I don't hear any regret at all. I just hear like there's certainly that open question of what could have been.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got a pretty great life, and and honestly, I think for me, it has nothing to do with the material stuff. We didn't take pictures of the cars in the front, but it has nothing to do with the material stuff. It has everything to do, for me at least, to see like who you've grown up into over this last little bit. I mean, I remember getting a call from you about the Sundance thing. And, I remember seeing a woman in that situation where you had this premiere for a movie that you'd written. And you were, Yeah, it was just a fun, like it was such an overwhelming experience for you, I think, on a bunch of levels. The story was so personal.
Yeah.
The environment was so like
You
charged.
did come there.
I did. And we went to that, I went to that premiere with you. And, I think I sent you a picture that we took from that night and you told me to burn it. So it's never been on the
because
internet.
I was 3 times the size.
No, but I mean, just thinking about who you were then and who you are now is like really wild. It's really impressive. One thing you did, I don't know if you remember this dinner we did when we kicked off the NDVC retreat the first time, but we had a dinner and everybody had to teach the group something that they knew or that they wanted to teach them. One guy like busted, you remember he like pulled out a guitar in this Mexican restaurant?
See, my memory box can only hold certain things. So I actually don't.
So you had, basically it was like 10 steps to building an audience on social media.
Oh, okay. I think I remember that.
So I was wondering if you had to rewrite that today, what are the 10 ways to build an audience on social media today that are different than 2016?
I guess I would reduce it from 10 and reduce all the way down to 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the 3?
Speak to yourself. I know that sounds crazy. There's so many people that will start a business and they don't have any interest in fashion, but they want to create a fashion community and they don't even, you know what I'm saying? You can't, it's hard to speak outside of you.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because if you like cosplay or if you like badminton, like if you can speak so well to yourself, you'll find a whole community of people that are just like that, right? At the time, I was, a young Black woman that loved Black media, but also had a specific kind of humor. And so when I started, I was in that vein. I was just I was doing things I wanted, to engage in. And so I was really talking to myself. And then even as I've grown and the audience, some of the audience has grown because we have like Gen Z, but because we have teens and all that, but some of the audience, the millennials are my age, we're growing together. And as I change, I start talking to myself. There was a time when we only did celebrity news, and I'm like, I want politics. I'm getting older. There's the other, and as I would shift, they would shift. You know what I mean? And they would love it, right? So I was speaking to myself, and I think that that's not something that a lot of people say because they feel like audiences should be big and diverse, and I get that. But I think that when you can speak to yourself, you're going to resonate with people like you in a way that is just unique. So I would say speak to yourself. The second thing I would say is listen to your audience. That's something that a lot of people don't do.
Why don't they do it? Is there good reason?
Because they may be looking at analytics and data analytics, or they don't feel the need to create a bond with their audience, right? So when I first started the platform, I was speaking directly, was in my voice and my humor, and that went a long way, right? And then it got to a point where the audience said they didn't want to hear my voice anymore. And some founders are they just have an inability to do self-reflection, right? That sometimes they don't know when to take themselves out of it. And so I listen to my audience. They say, we don't want your voice anymore. If I would have continued to do my voice, the Shade Room wouldn't be what it is at all. I had to listen to them, and I took myself out. They said, we want to be named. Rihanna has a Navy. Nicki Minaj has the Barbs. You know what I mean? We want to be named. Naming the roommates was one of the best things that I've ever done.
It was amazing.
Because they became a community. They're a community outside of us.
Right.
Like they look at us
They
as
identify as roommates.
The roommates are almost separate from the Shade Room in the sense that it's them and then there's us. We're like the moderators of their community. That's what I'm saying, right? And so...
Has it always been a peaceful coexistence?
No, I mean, it's like Instagram. Instagram is just a utility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you see how we know the Instagram. We there's a community on Instagram that's heavy, right? But they'll come at Instagram anytime they want to. In fact, a lot of times they don't like Instagram.
Right.
We don't like the people running Instagram. We don't, right? Because they're not listening, right? People constantly yell at Instagram and they're not listening. But you see how they treat Instagram. It's not like we're all for Instagram. We don't really care about the people that run Instagram. We're just using it as a utility. And I feel like that's kind of like the Shade Room. It's like they're like, you guys are just the means and we are the people in the community and all that. And I feel like giving them a name allowed them to do that.
Did you do anything specifically to cultivate that or encourage it?
Yes. So even to this day, like if you DM the Shade Room, you'll get a response, right?
Wow.
Because I kept talking to them. Person who is just a random person on Instagram or TikTok or wherever, if they know that they can talk to the Shade Room and get a response, they almost feel like they have that VIP connect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Like they feel like I have a VIP connect to a big platform. They DM'd you and they sent you a story. Now they don't know hundreds of other people sent that same story, but we said thank you, and they see that story up. They're like, I got that story up on the Shade Room.
That's amazing.
That they DM us and say, you need to take that down because this is not a good look for this, and you know I don't like the tone of this. They don't know that 100 other people DM'd us that, but they see it down. They're like, they listen to me, right? And so there's an ownership of the Shade Room. It's like home for them. It's like you guys are our moderators, but you're kind of like our cousins. You know what I mean? In the sense that it's like they feel at home in this community. They feel like they have ownership over this platform. They can move this platform one way or the other, right? And so I feel like that's really important. Knowing your audience is very important. Once you know, that comes from listening to them to really knowing them. And, you know, there's this thing of like intuition versus analytics, you know, and I feel like a good business has both. And that intuition comes from knowing your audience, which in turn comes from knowing yourself, which in turn comes from speaking to yourself. You understand what I'm saying? So
Right.
these three things are, to me, the most important.
Okay, so what was the third?
Knowing your audience.
Knowing your
Know your audience.
Speak to yourself.
Listen to your audience, and then know your audience.
Know your audience.
That might sound so simple and foolish, right? But tell me a community that has been built that did not stand on those three principles. Like, you can't. You know?
Okay, so how much do the roommates, or how much influence does that community have over the pivot, or what's next for the Shade Room? What are they saying? What do they want? And does that affect how you think about it?
Step one.
Oh,
Speaking to myself.
okay.
So that's what it is. The pivot is going to be going back to step one. What do I want right now? Because I feel like media is stale. I feel like there's something going on. I feel like it's a disruption needs to be had. I feel like all of these things. So now I'm going back to step one and see what that brings.
I'm excited to see what it is. How do we blow through night? We just did like almost 2 hours.
Yeah, that didn't feel like it.
That didn't feel like it at all. I feel like it was like volume one. Like,
Oh, it's definitely volume
for
one.
sure, right? We got to keep doing these.
It's definitely volume one.
I'm just already looking forward to the next one.